Hey everybody, good to see you. I'll try to block the window in back of me so you don't get the occasional blast of glare there. So we've got the new moon in Capricorn today. And there's a lot going on in terms of flow. It's a good one. It's occurring at 28 degrees in Capricorn. So anything that you've got in any sign around 28 degrees, like 5 degrees on either side, is caught up in all of this. Hey, ER. So it's a great amount of unifying energy that's coming in here. There's plenty of trines and sextiles, and it's a cooperative, unifying, flowing, non-confrontational beginning to this particular cycle. Somebody's got a nice trine to the Virgo ascendant. Yeah, especially if you have planets in, yeah, actually, yeah, earth signs. You're getting the best of it. So sun, moon, Mercury, Mars are all hanging out around 28 degrees. And it's opposite to Jupiter. And we've had quite a lot going on this month. Have you noticed that? It's like everything is opposite to Jupiter. Yeah, we like that. And then this really nice trine to Uranus, which is at the later degrees in Taurus. And an amazing sextile to Saturn and Neptune that are at those very last degrees in Pisces. So it's this configuration of agreement, cooperation, flow, and lack of argument when it comes to all of these forces. And so we implant something at the new moon. This is when we begin something. This is when things take root. So we're healing in this cooperativeness and this new start when it comes to clarity. And because we don't have arguments going on, we don't have conflict, we don't have this shearing effect, it brings in clarity and groundedness. Practical groundedness. That's Capricorn stuff. We've been missing that over the last decade. So we have a moment of clarity among chaos. And that chaos will continue. This is not, the day that everything settles down. We get back to the normal process of sleepwalking. No. Our state of collective somnambulism is coming to an end forever. And so it's a collective looking around and taking stock of what kind of anchor or root or shoring up or clarifying or preparing do we need to do. And it's a efficient, practical, let's just look around here and see what I need to do or address or shore up in my particular area. So it's a feeling of staging. I think of it like we've all gone to climb a really tall mountain. And we come to the bottom and we are at the staging ground. That's where we are right now. Capricorn is the mountain. It's the hard work that we do to justify our existence. Hey, Michael. Hey, Time to Heal. Hey, Ruby. And so we are at that bottom of that, and having in this process of, getting all of our gear together and seeing what we're gonna need. And this is where we really pare down, because there's this feeling of needing to travel light, because this is happening among a period of time of collapse. So, among this chaos, we have this point of getting our bearings and preparedness, because there is a feeling that there's a real hard climb ahead. We got some hard things to deal with here ahead, because we do. Is the end of an age. It's the end of a global era. These are the very last weeks of Saturn and Neptune. And Pisces, we have the other outer planets shifting. Pluto shifted last year. We have Uranus coming to shift in April. All of this is happening in relationship with Jupiter, which is our ideology, our morality, our collective stories. And so it is a global societal shift in a direction where what our idea of reality, of truth, or what things are, where they come from, the meanings that we give to things shifts on a global basis. We're used to having that happen in more isolated cultural conditions. We'll have different, countries, cultural affiliations go through their rises and falls. Valentino, what's up? And this is where we all, at the same time, come into a different definition or understanding of reality. We give different meanings to things based on different collective ideas and agreements, and the old structures are falling. And so this is a way that the common person can, just right now, this particular new moon, the common person, us, can prepare themselves in a way that we are our own guide, our own point of reference. Because we're not going to have solid, safe, consistent, external outside sources of structure or meaning or guidance or orientation. That's what's all shifting and changing with the outer planets. But see, this happening in Capricorn, this is like, put down your own root and get ready for a big shaking. Because the outgoing powers that be are not going to go without an argument. The way that we structure ourselves and understand power going into the age of Aquarius is very different, because our understanding of power is more accurate. We come to see why there has been this cyclical stupidity regarding, war, violence, tunnel vision, acting out of the worst aspects of our humanity instead of our best. And so this is going to be a terribly, terribly painful time, because what we thought was true is being obliterated. Now, that is happening through revelation of hypocrisy, too much information, science, travel, shared information. And that's poison to systems that rely on keeping things segmented, black and white, and controllable. When we have that diversification of information and of attention, it gives us personally more power, because all of the ideas, principles, orienting ideas, morality is not coming down from a single idea system, or system of value, or hierarchical voice. And so we see the outgoing powers that be just scrambling to get that back in order right now, because there is this understanding that they've gone too far. And see, propaganda is best served and absorbed when it is more subtle. And when you have these like rises and falls and safety and adrenaline and nervous system spikes, when it's 100% all the time, that's when it is less convincing, and you have to try harder, and you have to just, get out all the energy that you have, and it becomes more and more and more caricature-like. It's not as convincing anymore, because the delivery is desperate. And that's where we're at right now on a world stage, is that old governing systems that misuse their power, they're really going to these extremes to keep the veneer up, to keep the act up. Because if we're not convinced anymore, it's over. If they lose belief, it's over. And it is the taking back of our attention that is the deadliest thing to our outdated governing systems that exist on misuse of power. So it is an interesting time where we have so much truth and light coming out at the very same time that we have a lot of devolution. Because that's how cycles work. We have the outgoing cycle, which is a collapse, happening at the same time we have that incoming cycle, which is a building process. And Capricorn is showing us that we have to be our own guru and guide when we don't know what is right or true, or our systems of regularity or guidance or normalcy, our institutions break down. If you're dependent on those to tell you what's true, it's the most nihilistic, disruptive thing to have to endure that kind of destruction. But if you're rooted in your own conscience and your own if you're orienting yourself because you know what you want, you're in tune with your conscience. If you're not in tune with your conscience, you can't know what you want, because what you want is being externally imposed. You have to go looking for that. That's why we go out searching. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want, because it's outside of you somewhere. And you think that it's a destination or a person or a purpose or some magical words, and none of that will ever actually hit the spot. You may rest for a while before you get restless again, because it is not a place to, well, because you can't rest. It's not home. Home is peaceful. It's safety. It's security. We want to remain there. That search that happens out there, what takes us away from that ability to rest and remain and to feel, those are all distractions that keep us in motion. And that in motion is a hunger. That's that looking for something outside of me. That's related to institutional conditioning. And so when those outside meanings collapse, see, typically we've been doing the opposite. We've been going inward. And I mean, if you're on the path of knowing yourself, we would choose to go inward. And then that will, cause those outside conditioned structures to collapse. But this is like a mass enlightenment, because those outside systems and the structures and those patriarchal, hierarchical ideals and systems and institutions, they are all collapsing. And so it's this mass chaos and panic and delusion, romantic delusion too. This is why twin flames are a huge thing, or just regular old karmic attachment, misaligned relationships that are exploding our attachment systems. That's what happens in this kind of collapse, because you don't have these outside systems of meaning and orientation. That all is forced inward. And we seek to find that regularity and that soothing and that purpose through relationship, where typically we don't do that. We're out there looking to get rich. That will bring us peace. Looking for status. That will bring us peace. Looking for some magical words that a guru that we pay a lot of money to, and they sprinkle some, magic dust on us, that will bring us peace. No, it has to be happiness is an inside job. That's what it really comes down to. And that means if you're doing it right, nobody has to get rich off of that. You're the one that benefits from it. You're the one that should be benefiting from your own resources. Those don't have to be externally given for you to arrive. And that's been the hoodwink, is, buy my stuff, or pay me money, or in some ways deplete yourself and do things that aren't in alignment with your conscience, because the king, the religion, the system wants you to do that, tells you to do that. So it's this programming that has been in place on purpose to split us from our own internal guidance, which is not warlike. That's not in service to war. Fear is in service to war. Fear is in service to division. And so if you do start to regulate yourself, if you do start to manage your own fear and your own emotions, you are not an effective tool of old systems that have misused their power. And why have those been in place? Essentially because it serves the unmetabolized, undealt with death anxiety of the elites. Those who cannot deal with their own fear will find ways to deal with it externally. And it is not the most intelligent among us that seek power and to enrich themselves. It is the most fearful and insecure. That's what drives that kind of motivation. And that doesn't mean that balanced people don't want good things or don't want to be comfortable, don't want to do well. They do. It's not in service to misusing one's power or gaining influence in a way that soothes your own death anxiety. It's constructive. When we experience abundance for the right reasons and the right motivations, it's constructive. It's not destructive. It doesn't disempower, it empowers. And so we're coming to a place where, as a world society, we're starting to see through the veneer of being mobilized to disempower others, misuse our power, and be an arm of those who cannot deal with their own death anxiety. And so what do? See, the rest of us can't afford to deal with it externally. We can to a certain degree, especially if we are a person in a certain society that gets to throw our weight around externally. Then you can definitely avoid dealing with your death anxiety. That's what the patriarchy is for. But if you deal with it yourself, you manage your own emotions, you're not reactive anymore, you're active. It's not a situation anymore where you deal with things through conflict, because you understand the power of attention. You're supposed to deal with things in a reactive way that prioritizes conflict before you really transform out of being susceptible to being used as an appendage of someone else's unmetabolized anxiety, death anxiety. So when we deal with our own emotions, we can't be used. And people that have dealt with their own anxiety, that do manage their own emotions, that have emotional maturity and inner mastery, they don't put their energy into gaining power. They influence through how they live their life. They influence through lived experience because it's not forced. It doesn't become a religion, a dogma, a way, I have to. It isn't a part of them proving their rightness, because that would be an externally imposed method of someone dealing with their own personal death anxiety. So we are in a different place than we used to be in terms of cycles. This is a predictable place where we are in terms of collapse. But what's not predictable, or the same as it's always been, is that we have evolved and that we have more information, different types of information that we can access, so that was not there in the past. A big part of that is women learning to balance and manage their own emotions and being in a place they can fend for themselves. That has never been the case when it came to us being at a place like this in any society or order of things. Because you have to keep women vulnerable. You have to have that segment of society unaware of their own power and unwilling to strike out on their own. And the transits of Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter through Capricorn really ensured that women worldwide would come in to a period of supporting themselves. And so economically, there was a lot of practical decisions that had to be made during that period of time. And once somebody is let out of a cage, or once you find your way out of a system of thinking, or you learn your way out of a religion or a paradigm, you cannot go back unless you drug yourself, or unless you're forced back into that in some way, because the illusion is broken. You can't believe it anymore. You either have to be drugged, drunk, or forced back into that. So there's some people that are so invested in the systems of coherence, systems that have given us a way to orient ourselves and belief, meaning, systems of meaning. This particular month, we're seeing that those who can root themselves in their own meaning and their own conscience, that means you have to be connected to your feelings, or else you can't know what you want. Those who are there are putting down this taproot right when the storm is coming through. And those who are too attached to those external systems of governance, control, meaning, direction, as all of that melts down, all that's left are fraudulent remnants that condense, and it is more and more caricaturish and cosplayish and extreme culty when it comes to finding those little pools of traditional governance, orientation, and meaning. So when I was in Maui the last time, we had a hurricane come through. And it prompted me to find out how birds just survive that kind of storm. Because they do. You wake up in the morning and there's birds chirping after the storm is over. They're still around. I was like, how does that happen? Being that they're so delicate. And I looked it up. And what I found out is that what they do is that when those winds are blowing or when it's just a chaotic weather environment around them, they cling to a branch or a twig or a tree. They cling to something with their low feet. And then they let the rest of their body go limp. And so they have this locking mechanism where they're locked on, but then the rest of them just kind of goes flexible and kind of waves and just goes with the wind. And it's that flexibility mixed with that locked anchor that keeps them alive. And that's where we need to be. And for those of us that can feel what's coming, because a lot of you can, that's why you're here. You're sensitive to the omens of nature. We need to be like a sparrow. We need to be like a bird and find something that you do believe in, someone that you do trust, a home that you love, something that you know is real and true. And then you hang on to that while remaining flexible and knowing that if everything around you falls apart, blows apart, and collapses, you're still attached to that thing that does give you essential meaning, and you know that it's true because it feels good to you. Be like the sparrow. So I'll leave you guys with that. And I'm not going to switch over to my subscriber account today. I will check in with you guys tomorrow. But I will take a few questions here and just say hi to a few people before I go. Hey, Alice. Oh, you pulled the Hierophant. How appropriate. Alice, proving worth and legacy. That's a big part of things. Legacy is Pluto, right? You're coming out of these old Plutonic systems. Time to heal. You know, sometimes it's excess that can actually impede our happiness. You know, that doesn't mean that we want to own nothing and be happy. That's, again, part of an external brainwashing system. But we have to be careful when it comes to ownership because we don't want to be owned by the things that we own. And that can, come in rather, we can be blind to that. We can not understand before we're there that what we thought we wanted is actually a burden. So we have to have a balance here between abundance and being caught and finding ourselves beleaguered under the abundance. Oh, Michael, North Node at 29 degrees Capricorn. So this is definitely going to be something that has an impact on your dharma, your call to action, which is about the slow and steady build, building things so you get to keep them. Um, it's the individuation process in itself, North Node in Capricorn. Being called to leadership, really, with North Node in Capricorn. Oh, yes. Good point, Alice. And the storm will pass and we will get to let go of our branch and fly how we please. Mm-hmm. But we do have to weather the storm of hard endings and we'll be able to take off in new ways. But it's going to be a process here that's going to take a while for us to transform out of these, 2,000 year plus outdated ideas about power and survival and abundance and all of that business. What sign and house is my Neptune? My Neptune is in Sagittarius in the 4th house. It's angular, which is not the best place to have it in terms of difficulty. All right. I am going to sign off for the day and I will check in with my subscriber group tomorrow. If you guys aren't part of the inner circle, grab a channel membership and I will see you guys tomorrow.